everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Murray. Thanks for joining me. I hope you guys are all doing well. Happy Sunday. This is going to be a little bit of like a twofer. So obviously we're going to be taking a look at the September overview for the month of September, the astrology. But I also want to factor in some things that are going to be happening for the immediate next week. So it's a little bit of both. Thank you guys for coming back. Please make sure you click the button below and you're subscribed so you're alerted as to when we have new content coming out on the channel. If this is your first time watching, please drop me a comment below, say hello, and give me a thumbs up. Love to hear from you. And this is going to be the astro weather more or less for the whole month of September, but we are going to be taking a look at September 3rd through the 10th to get you guys through this next week. Well, for me, I'm dubbing September the calm before the storm. For a lot of us, September is going to be a month where we're kind of playing catch up. We're kind of preparing. We're getting some things in order, and we get a little bit of a break from the cosmos. So very thankful for that. I think a theme that you all are also going to be noticing this month is a bit of deja vu, okay? So we've got many retrograde aspects that are involving both Venus in Leo as well as Mercury in Virgo that will have us looking back at the past one way or another. If you guys remember, I told you how the Venus retrograde was going to slap on the back end. This is that month that we're going to see those aspects. But for the most part, right, when we're dealing with retrogrades, we are reviewing, reworking, and re-evaluating something. Sometimes we go back on something, we change our mind, we make tweaks. That's how I'm using this energy. It's been really helpful for that. And we're going to be reviewing in general, not just because of the retrogrades, but because that's what Mercury is good at. It wants to review all of the fine details. Now, in the sign of Virgo, it's going to be a lot about productivity. So I think it can help some of us get better organized, set up new schedules, have better routines. But I also think we're going to be reviewing our beliefs because Mercury will be making several aspects to Jupiter in the midst of this retrograde, which is going to have us being more optimistic about what the future holds, more optimistic about our resources, our values, and be thinking of new innovative ways of being able to rework something about our physical life. So it can be our finances, our health, our bodies, our jobs. And that's going to be a big theme: health, wellness, productivity, and work. These are all themes revolving around Virgo. So when you guys are watching this, obviously we're already in Virgo season. The Sun Mercury Cazimi is going to take place this week as well. So you're also going to see an opportunity to get those cosmic kisses from Mercury where you can get some kind of secret information, or maybe you have an epiphany, or there is something some bright idea or download that you have that might be taking place this week as well. Now, like I said about Venus slapping on the back end, okay? So big reason to celebrate. You guys are watching this today on the 3rd. Venus will be going direct. So actually today the Venus retrograde will be ending. But we are going to see Venus kind of more or less than in an extended period of a square with Jupiter. So things are still feeling rather big. And we're also going to see Venus spending the better part of the next week at 12 degrees. So we'll get into that. But just know, if you have any personal planets around 12 degrees of Leo, Sun, Moon, Rising, or personal planet, maybe it's an angle in your chart, it's pretty prominent as Venus is waking up, because when planets station direct, likely some significant events revolving around the theme of that planet, right? Venus is about relationships, resources, money, values, kind of come up in our lives. So you might be seeing some situation turning around. So I think we're all thankful to see this Venus retrograde end, to be honest with you. And in the sign of Leo, Venus has been turned retrograde since the end of July, and she's been trying to figure out, what does the heart want? And so many of you guys have been asking yourselves probably, do I love this still? Do I still want to be in this relationship? How can I make more time for fun or creativity? And asking, yourself what it is that you truly value. Now, we've seen several squares throughout this retrograde, both to Jupiter as well as Uranus. And, it's made the romantic or financial changes that have been taking place this summer feel larger than life. And I think quite dramatic, to be honest with you. And I think of like Jupiter and Uranus square, or, Jupiter, Uranus, Venus aspects. I think about big romance, big upheavals, big changes. So yeah, likely we've been feeling that stress test with our finances and our relationships as we've seen Venus squaring off with Jupiter as well as Uranus. So there's still some dramatic stuff that's going to play out this month, guys. Okay, we're going to see this at the tail end of the month, and a little bit peppered in between. So I'll give you all of those dates. As a reminder, this is my general overview. So if you want to know more like, hey, how is this going to affect me personally? Check out my September 2023 horoscopes. They are live for all of you guys. They're like over 4 hours long. I go in depth into all of these transits we're going to talk about today for the 12 rising signs, and let you know exactly how that might play out in your life. Make sure you check out that video on my channel. I posted it, I think, like a week or so ago. And leave me a comment and let me know how it resonates with you, okay? Now, I just want to give you guys a little bit of news also for this month. Please, like I said, make sure you're subscribed because we're going to have lots of new stuff coming out on the channel this fall. I've been working really hard during the Venus retrograde, putting in a lot of work into creative projects and creating some new products for you guys. I've got likely going to be some lunar calendars that are going to be coming out, 2024 astrology calendars as well. If you guys caught my stuff from last year, we're probably going to have some sales, some new courses, and all kinds of like extra goodies. So make sure you're subscribed or head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Sign up for my newsletter so you are alerted as to when I have new stuff coming out on my website, because you don't want to miss it. And if you guys like my content, please do not forget to share. Sharing is so helpful. Share it with somebody who might benefit from this information, or consider joining my YouTube memberships. I have 3 different levels of memberships to show support if you like my content and you want to support me as a full-time content creator. Now, as people have been asking when I'm going to teach another webinar, I will be teaching one in just a couple of weeks' time. In September, I'm going to be teaching a eclipse webinar. This will be on Sunday, September 17th at 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. It'll be a live discussion where we're going to talk about the incoming solar eclipse in Libra in October, the first of the series in Libra, Aries. I guess technically the first solar eclipse in Libra, the second eclipse of that series. And we're also going to be talking about the closing eclipse, which will be the lunar eclipse in Taurus. Both ruled by Venus, really significant things going on with these particular eclipses. I hope that you join me. I'm offering $15 off for this webinar if you head over to my website and you book it before the date of the webinar. If you can't make it live, no worries. There's a playback for you as well. All right, so thank you for letting me do my shameless plug. Let's get into the astrology for the month. We're going to start first with the immediate next week and see what's going on. So those of you guys who are watching in the morning on Sunday, what's up, Sunday crew? We are definitely waking up in a bit of a grouchy mood. I remember looking at this last week, trying to kind of forewarn you guys like, hey, if you're an early bird, you're going to see some tension in the skies early in the morning. As the moon is coming into conjunction with the North Node, doing our own thing. Pay attention to the impulsiveness, the natural desires, the need to do something more independently. If you're somebody who likes to be productive and get up early in the morning and have your you time or work out or go to the gym, good morning for that, because the moon is really strong in the sign of Aries. However, it is going to pick up a square to Pluto. So very early in the morning, by the time you guys are watching it, it's just getting ready to fade, but you might start be noticing this intense pressure with the moon in Aries, putting an emphasis on, what am I doing for myself? How can I take action, right? Where am I feeling empowered or maybe even agitated and feeling like there is some sense of something kind of having power over you? The moon in astrology, in, just looking at like, regular astrological kind of forecasts, does kind of talk about how the public is feeling. So it's a little intense on Sunday morning. You'll see this ingress where the moon goes into Taurus, and it's going to be more about kind of getting comfortable, enjoying ourselves, having pleasure. And so that's going to be somewhere around the later morning today. So my advice is take some time to yourself, do something productive, get active, blow off some steam before the moon goes into Taurus. And we're going to focus a little bit more on like comfort. I think it's kind of cool that the moon's going to be in Taurus today while Venus goes direct. And I think that there's something to be said about now finally as Venus goes direct, we're going to feel like, okay, we can find more time for pleasure, for relationships, for security, for resources. So you're going to see come like the PM hours today, the moon is going to be moving deeper into Taurus, and it's going to start picking up some trines that you're going to see even going into the morning on Monday with planets in Virgo, okay? So here's the moon moving through Taurus, picking up that energy of Venus going direct. So you may notice a shift actually tonight where there's like a little bit of like, oh, like now I feel like relationships are calming down, or like my sweet tooth is finally calming down. I've heard a lot of people talk about that with the Venus-Jupiter square. And we're going to feel like we can just, feel like we can have pleasure again, or that we can have kind of a sense of feeling solid or maybe even more secure with our finances or our relationships. Something else you're going to see that's taking place today as well, and it's kind of bleeding into Monday, so you might feel it, a day or two. But Mercury, while it's retrograde, is coming back into a trine with Jupiter. So this is the second trine that we've seen. We saw it originally as Mercury was coming into shadow, where Mercury, the messenger in Virgo, is all about the facts and the figures and the information and all of the data, the organization, the cleanliness. Jupiter is about the bigger picture. So it can be about, okay, let's, take all the details into account and make the tweaks before we go with that big change, that big investment, that big purchase. Definitely seen this materialize for, I think, a lot of my clients. It's been working this way for me as well. I'm using Mercury almost like a fine-tooth comb, and I'm just doing a lot of really tedious work. A lot of like going through, getting my 2024 calendar ready, making sure everything is like the exact perfect size and the right date. And like, I'm waiting for this trine actually to take place on Sunday, Monday. Because I know that's going to be a time where I can start to kind of look at the physical copies of things and go, okay, is it the way that I want it? Do I make a change before I have the physical version, right? Jupiter in Taurus. I like this Monday and Tuesday for having to kind of get down to details on things. It's very productive with these earth trines that are going to be taking place, but you might want to look at what's been happening over the last 2 weeks as we first started seeing Mercury build into a trine with Jupiter. Quite honestly, I think this can be some good news, and some good news I think we could all benefit from right now, some kind of insight. And we tap into that through Mercury retrograde. So reviewing the details, looking at the fine print, listening to our intuition, really assessing how we're feeling. Even though Virgo is a very practical sign, it is in aspect to Jupiter, which is very spiritual. And for me, it's like I've been kind of the last like week or two kind of being like, when in doubt, I just wait for the signal from the cosmos or the green light or Mercury's little tricks to kind of give me a confirmation, yes, do this thing. Or I wait for the symbol in the dream, or what the tarot cards are kind of telling me as a part of my daily spreads. And a lot of this is about kind of either reading spiritual stuff or just making more of an effort, I think, to meditate or to kind of pray, right? Jupiter can be very priestly in that sense. Now, something else we're going to be seeing that is going to be taking place. This is more now kind of getting into Monday. So let's take you guys there. So this is Sunday night. And then we're going to wake up on the 4th in the morning. And that's when we're still feeling the effects of the Mercury Jupiter trine. It's actually going to be more so exact in the morning, but Sunday, Monday, you're going to have it. The moon is going to come into conjunction with Jupiter. So that is going to bring opportunities for big feelings, feeling secure, comfortable, confident, abundant, right? Because Jupiter is in Taurus. And we're getting ready actually to see Jupiter retrograde. So Jupiter will be retrograding on Monday. So the fact that the moon and Jupiter are going to come into conjunction is maybe bringing the attention to Taurus related things, banks, resources, security, food, grounding, right? And that conjunction feels really good with the exalted moon, especially with the trine to Mercury. So it's likely we're getting some information that's coming in or that's being reevaluated that has the potential to have big emotional effects on us when it comes to our resources. So Mercury retrograde in Virgo, right? We're reevaluating or reassessing the job market. I keep telling you guys, we're going to hear a lot over the next couple of weeks about how job performances and numbers are not anywhere near what people are thinking that they are. Unfortunately, we're also going to see a reevaluation, a rollback, or a reworking of health regulations. That's literally Mercury can be about businesses. Mercury can also be about workers. And so in the sign of Virgo, we're going to see this reevaluation and the impact that that may very well have on the financial markets. Now, trines can be free-flowing energy. So if you're somebody who is in the stock market, I would really recommend paying attention to Monday morning because not only are you going to see the moon, Jupiter in Taurus amplifying the public's emotional reactions to financial situations, the trine to the sun and Mercury, where there's some kind of change going on with some of these areas in our world, health-wise, business-wise. But also now Venus is direct, and Venus is the dispositor of Taurus. So we're going to see the moon and Jupiter kind of pick up a square to Venus. So likely Monday morning, a lot of really strong emotional reactions to fluctuations and changes or expansion when it comes to business and money. Like I said, later this day on Monday, Jupiter will turn retrograde, and Jupiter will go retrograde at 15 degrees, and it will stay retrograde until about December the 30th this year. So if you're a Sagittarius or a Pisces rising, Jupiter is your ruling planet. You may be feeling this a little bit more so strongly than the other 12 signs. Equally, if you're a Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, and if you have any placements between, let's say 14 and 16 degrees, you may feel this as well because Jupiter is retrograding conjunct a significant part of your chart. Now, Jupiter deals with expansion, travel, philosophy, abundance, the bigger picture, spiritual related things. So Jupiter, which is one of the great benefics, is turning retrograde. So we may see in some situations it's not continuing to grow, right? So if there's been this sense of growing concern about finances and resources, I don't think the Jupiter retrograde is enough to cease that. In fact, I'm fairly confident that we're still going to see at some point between now and I think November some more bank collapse situations. I do think that might happen with some smaller banks. So I'm not totally convinced that Jupiter retrograde will slow down inflation. I don't think it'll slow down interest rates or lower them. I think we're going to continue to see them grow, to be honest with you. Now Uranus and Jupiter are retrograde in the same sign. So we're seeing Uranus that will retrograde and get closer to Jupiter, even though they will not conjunct yet. You're going to see that conjunction next spring. The positive is that as Jupiter retrogrades between now and the end of the year, it is going to come into a sextile with Saturn. So it is going to kind of be stabilized by Saturn in some way. But you may see that the area that Jupiter is in, the house that Taurus is in your natal chart, some of the growth or the free-flowing energy, it might slow down a little bit. You might see that there's more of integrating now some of the changes and some of the growth that has happened. All right, so now we're going to take this to Tuesday. And this is going to be the 5th. Oh, I guess I should say early in the morning on the 5th, most of you guys will be asleep, but we are going to catch this conjunction to Uranus. So if you're somebody who likes to watch the pre-markets, I'd also be watching the pre-markets on Tuesday the 5th. Because that can be bringing up some kind of sudden surprises or changes that are going on with the banking system or how everybody's feeling about money. I think this is especially true considering Venus is now going direct. So where there's been maybe some slowing down effects of resources or changes with money, we might see that still it's picking up that energy where that is somehow changing the banking sector now that Venus is direct. All right, so now we're going to see the moon make an ingress to Gemini, but before it does, the moon is going to obviously come out of that conjunction with Uranus, come out of the trines that we've been seeing in Virgo, which has been very productive. And some of the last aspects that we're going to see in the very early morning hours on Tuesday is the moon will trine Pluto. So that's about some kind of like transformation of power and resources. You might hear more about like what the government or politicians are saying about banking and financial situations. We're also going to see the moon pick up a sextile to Neptune. So this is going to be about how they're like, oh, we're jumping in and we're helping prevent this, that, and the other. And stuff that's being put in place basically to provide financial security resources or perhaps even food. So you guys might hear about that. All right, so then we're going to start to see the moon ingress into Gemini. That's going to be happening like right around the later afternoon on Tuesday. And this is interesting because right when the moon goes into Gemini, obviously we're looking at Mercury, right? Because Mercury is the planet that represents the sign of Gemini. And we're starting to pick up this energy of the Sun-Mercury cazimi. Now, the cazimi isn't going to take place until Wednesday, but you may start seeing the effects of this. And when the Sun and Mercury are in conjunction, just in general, it's almost like the mind's on fire. There's so much information that's coming in, and it can kind of get burned up overly quickly with the conjunction here. And it's really interesting to see Mercury in its ruling sign because it's almost like the information is coming in faster than we can actually know what to do with it. And we're going to see the moon, as it starts coming into Gemini, also pick up a square to Saturn. So that's going to make it, I think, a little bit more challenging, perhaps, with this mutable square when it comes to like responding to things, communicating things, working through ideas, relaying information, making changes about our home or our feelings. And this is about how I think Gemini represents like duality. So it represents, it could be this or it could be that. It kind of plays devil's advocate. And you're going to see this more as we're getting into Wednesday in just a second. But yeah, you'll definitely feel that change in the air. And one of the first aspects that we're actually going to see is that the moon is then going to start coming into, this will be very early in the morning on the 6th. This is Wednesday. The moon will start coming into a trine with Mars. Okay, so Moon in Gemini is encouraging us to communicate, share, relay information, have conversations, talk to our neighbors, read the newspaper, all of that stuff. So communication is king. I want everybody to take out their red marker right now. Circle Wednesday, okay? This is probably going to be like the most topsy-turvy day, I think, all week. Maybe a second to some aspects that we're going to be seeing on Sunday. But this is the day to watch where stuff is going to get kind of like weird. So first of all, we're going to see that the Mercury cazimi is setting up. If you guys didn't already watch your horoscopes, watch that. I talk about which house it's taking place for you. Personally, I'm a big fan of this Mercury retrograde. Like, obviously, touch wood. I don't want to challenge Sky Daddy, but I definitely feel like the trines that we are experiencing to Jupiter and the fact that Mercury is in its domicile is very helpful. It's been very productive. So when we see the Sun Mercury cazimi, Mercury is moving into the superior position right in front of the Sun. So it's like this is like the one few minutes astrologically that we get a pass and it's not burnt up. It's where we find something that's missing, or we have an epiphany, or we have a download, or a really insightful conversation. And this is at 13 degrees. So this is a degree that is associated with Aries. It's a very get up, get something done, do it yourself, right? Taking the initiative, being brave, taking action when it comes to assessing a situation, asking questions, right? And really practicing critical thinking skills. That's so 13 degrees of Virgo. So when this cazimi happens, it's still an aspect to Jupiter. It's within a 2-degree orb of a trine. So whatever insightful situation or combing over the details or whatever like little like intuitive hit you have, it's important that you listen to it because it may be something that brings you some kind of security or abundance, right? Jupiter and Taurus. It could be that you catch an accounting error and then you realize like, oh, I actually overpaid that. Like I need to get my $200 back. Or it may be a situation where you notice a pattern or something that's going on in the stock market and you're like, I have a good feeling about this. I'm going to invest in this thing. For me, I think it's been intuitive hits about changes that need to be made in terms of health and wellness and preparedness. And I've talked about this several times on my channel. I spent the better part of like the last 2 weeks while Mercury's been in shadow building a total like arsenal of like medical stuff, like, you know, everything that's like holistic, supplements and vitamins and getting all kinds of things together for the winter months. So I know that I have everything that I need in the off chance that like, you know, there's some people out there who have the flu, and I'm like well stocked and prepared and I have all the stuff that I need for that. So that's what I've been doing with it. And intuitively that kept coming up. And so I'm wondering if this is going to be with the conjunction that some people start to kind of realize like, oh, wait a second, are we going back to a system or a way that we used to handle things health-wise? I'm not crazy about saying this, and I really try to avoid as much as I can of the pandemic talk, but I have a hunch that people are going to start to look around on, you know, today or tomorrow, like the 6th, the 7th, and you're going to be hearing news, right? Mercury. That's kind of like, wait a second, what's going on? Wait, we're delaying what? We're not, you know, we're hearing things about football, high school football games getting canceled. You're hearing things about, you know, some places returning to wearing masks. This may be when you start to realize, like, wait a second, are we going back to that? And what I like about Mercury trine Jupiter is like, this is giving you the opportunity to question a narrative and go like, wait a second, why are we doing that? Is this really productive? Like, what's the real connection here? And like, do we have to do these things too? Taurus, go into a store, buy stuff, to travel, right? Taurus, Jupiter and Taurus is like, you know, the effects of travel, how that might affect the travel industry. But for you guys at home, I think it can be where you get some insightful information that can better help your bank account or better help your health and wellness. So look out for that on the 6th. The reason why I think this is just going to be a topsy-turvy day is, once again, it starts with Moon square Saturn. So I think this is where we're getting hit with if we don't know things, if we're not properly informed, right? Gemini, if we're not talking about it, if we're not highlighting the fact that Saturn in Pisces is essentially some slow kind of behind the scenes, it kind of seeps in like all of this like limitation and like censorship. It's kind of coming back. I think this is about being vocal. Sun, Mercury in Gemini, trine Jupiter, being vocal in a global way, talking about freedom, right? Jupiter wants freedom. And as Jupiter is turning retrograde, we're going to start to realize like, wait a second, it's becoming harder to spend physical cash, have physical resources, especially when we're out and about and we're doing things. So if that's not something that you like, talk about it, inform other people, you know, try to bring attention to it so enough people are kind of realizing like there's too many things here. We're going to connect the dots. That's kind of indicating that we might be going back to some measures that did not necessarily work the first time. So then we're going to see later in the day, the moon's going to start coming into a square with the sun. And this is where we're going to see the quarter square. All right, so this will be the 3rd quarter square here. And quite honestly, PM hours on Wednesday, we might be feeling like in the afternoon, things are just not going according to plan. Then we start to see that the moon is coming into its breakdown phase before we're coming into what will eventually be a new moon in Virgo. When the moon is in this phase, we start kind of shedding things, getting rid of things, realizing what's not working. We start taking things apart. The moon is very much still connected to Mercury. So we're going to see now the moon come into a square with Mercury and the sun. So it's like, information, communication, getting around and doing things is not relating well to our schedule, Virgo, our coworkers, Virgo, our office space. And there's probably conflicting information or conflicting reports, I'm going to assume, that's coming out on the 6th, or things that seem a little foggy or maybe misrepresented, because we're also going to see the moon start coming into a square with Neptune. And the one thing that keeps coming up for me during these mutable squares is, if I don't know, ask someone, right? Go and find out, get the information. Don't just assume. It's also been for me, if you don't really know, don't talk about it, or don't think that you know what you're talking about until you've gone and properly done your research and make sure that you're well informed. I think that's very important with these squares. And it's also been, if you don't ask, you'll never know. I've had 2 or 3 separate situations in the last week with some of these squares where I almost blew off something and I was like, it's not worth my time. And then I actually emailed somebody and I was like, I know that this isn't possible, but would you be willing to, make a tweak or make a change? And in all of the situations, because I sent an email and I asked and I was like, would you be willing to make an exception? They said yes. So my advice is, when you start to see this square coming up, ask questions, try to stay informed, try to see if somebody's willing to work with you, and don't let yourself kind of get lost in some of like the mutable kind of confusion that can be happening on Wednesday afternoon. Now for me, I think once again, because Gemini is about duality, there's 2 sides of the story. Gemini is also news, media, radio, print, social media. So remember that Mercury's doing its thing. He's revising something, and this might start kind of making the airwaves and people start kind of hearing about it. And the moon is still slightly in a trine to Mars. So when in doubt, right, moon trine Mars in Libra, talk to other people, work with other people, try to find ways to work through things. Don't get lost in moon square Saturn, Neptune, and square the sun, where you're just like, there's no point, I'm not going to say anything because just forget it. No. Do your best to try to connect with other people and see if other people can align with you. But yeah, I think Wednesday's going to be a bit of a hot ass mess personally. So you guys have to come back and let me know how that goes. Then we get into Thursday. This is going to be the 7th, and we're waking up in the morning and the moon is still in Gemini. It's beginning to come into a sextile now with the North Node. So what we're talking about, running around doing, is helping us get more so in touch with the direction of where we need to be going. If Aries is initiating, Gemini is sharing, learning, talking, texting, emailing, reading. It's something that's going to be more kind of mental, kind of cerebral. And I like that we're also going to see some trines to the North Node, so we can talk about what is out of balance, right? What isn't working, what isn't legal. I think we're going to be hearing a lot of people talking about that. And it's going to help kind of empower that North Node and stand our ground. So we're working both positively with our direction, North Node, Dharma, and also our South Node, Karma. So this is a nice kind of clearing day. And eventually we will start to see the moon ingress into Cancer. That'll be happening later in the day. And before that happens, the moon's going to pick up a square to Neptune. So there is a lot of feeling maybe emotionally a little slimed, a little overwhelmed on Thursday afternoon. There can be some visibility issues. There can be some emotional sensitivity. And I definitely think we're going to see some more weird and wacky weather, especially because Gemini can represent wind, while Pisces can represent water and storms near coastal areas. And these fluctuations in Virgo are kind of setups for storms that can come on very quickly, kind of out of the blue, and create some travel issues, travel warnings. If you're getting any weather warnings or anything like that in your area, I would heed the advice always, but especially during some of these squares, we can definitely see some stuff that can change very rapidly. And then the moon is going to go into Cancer. That's going to be later in the evening on Thursday. And the moon is at home in its sign and immediately begins trining Saturn, which we're going to see very early morning on Friday. So Friday morning, moon in Cancer, soft and sensitive, reflecting. Yes, I think a lot of it can also be about focusing on comfort and security and family and home. I like the trine to Saturn, which is stabilizing. However, I do think that Friday morning may also be a morning where we are feeling a bit irritated. We're starting to see the moon come into a square with Mars. And this will be like the morning into the afternoon. And when the moon in Cancer, which is receptive and reflective, squares Mars in Libra, there's a lot of like not wanting to dig up the past, to deal with emotions, or maybe we're feeling like people are pressuring us or relationships are creating some squabbles or some challenges, putting us in the position of either responding or kind of like chickening out, right? When the moon's in Cancer, there can be a lot of like, I would rather, stay at home, stay in bed than face that person or have that conversation. But we may feel like others, Mars and Libra, are pressuring us to get out of the house, do something, get the show on the road, come to work, have conversations. So we're being put kind of on the spot to really participate in relationships on Friday. Now, the positive is that, Venus is now direct, so relating in theory could and should be a little bit easier. We're also going to see the sun in Virgo trine Jupiter in Taurus. Same trine that we've been seeing going on with Mercury. So maybe where earlier in the week, Mercury trine Jupiter was a lot of like, this is what I'm planning on doing. I'm just putting the final touches on it. When the sun comes in for that trine with Jupiter, it might be when you actually take the action, or you've built the faith, or, you're communicating how you're going big in some way, especially because this is happening at 15 degrees, which is a Mercury degree. So it does deal with sharing and communicating and writing. I very much look forward to this day. I look forward to some of the voices that are going to kind of pipe up over this next week, and some people who may be sharing their personal feelings, their emotions, their responses, and people may be very insightful and very reflective with some of the stuff that they've got to say on social media or about Jupiter and Taurus things, the earth, resources, food, banking, and I'm definitely seeing this. You're not seeing this on mainstream media. I reposted this on my Instagram, and no surprise, it got kind of like blinked out. But it looked like thousands of flight attendants have been protesting at LAX in this last week. The flight attendants union are protesting. There was like a over 99% vote for their unions to basically, sit out and protest because they have not gotten raises since 2019. So they've had to go through the effects of the last few years with the mandates, and also being in conditions where, big business and the airlines are making a lot of money. And they're not really getting as much support. So Virgo can be the people who go and they serve. They are servants. That's what Virgo placements are all about. They serve our communities. They can be civil servants. They can work in hospitals. They can work in the healthcare industry. They can be in hospitality. So when we see Sun trine Jupiter, I wonder if there's going to be some kind of big spotlight on workers' rights, whether or not they're being fairly paid. And I wonder if this might potentially make headlines. Jupiter definitely deals with pilots and flights and travel. And obviously Jupiter in Taurus is the abundance of money that, maybe they're getting in some of these situations. But it could also be more themes revolving around, being costly to reschedule flights, or flights kind of being delayed, and some kind of financial situation revolving around flights that could come up as well. All right, so that's, I like that Sun trine Jupiter. That's a positive aspect. So then we're going to take this through the end of Friday, and the moon is still moving through. We're going to see, as we get into Saturday, moon is still in Cancer, and it's going to start to pick up in the morning, a square to Chiron. And so this is a bit of an ouch. This might be a day where like the past comes back in some capacity, or you're reflecting on something, or you're more emotionally sensitive. to a home or a family matter. That can definitely be the case. We do start to see some harmonizing between the moon and the sun. So this is one of the last really kind of like, not the only, but one of the nicer aspects that the moon is going to make before we get into the new moon in Virgo next week. And as that moon keeps moving through Cancer, quite active. So we're going to see the Chiron square. Then we're going to see the moon square its own nodes, and this is going to be very early morning on Sunday. So this is where I said Sunday, especially Sunday morning. Something about these Sundays, they're quite active. Moon square its own nodes. So we're having to reflect, look at the past, ends of situations, changes with home, family, our roots, our heritage, our physical living space, changes going on in our country that we reside in. So it's very early on Sunday morning. And then the moon is going to come into an opposition with Pluto. So to me, this feels like Sunday morning is also a little irritated. 2 Sundays in a row where there's a lot of cardinal lunar squares, which means people are going to be a little bit more emotional. They're more willing to kind of respond to things strongly or take the initiative to react to stuff. This will be a grand cardinal square, okay? So it doesn't matter if you have planets there or not. Obviously, those of you guys who are like the last, 5-6 degrees of the cardinal signs of Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, I'd pay attention because events that are taking place really put the pressure on you to make change. But specifically, I think this is for a lot of you guys, across the board, it's going to be about being like, where are my emotions and my feelings and situations with my home and my family, and feeling the pressure of needing to change or transform something, or feeling like, there is some fear revolving around control issues, parenting issues also with authority, right? Opposition to Pluto is prompting some people to get active. So when planets square the nodes astrologically, that's where events happen that really change the course of where we're coming from and where we're going. So if you think of this Sunday, right, as you guys are watching this on the 3rd, as the, moon and north node in Aries is coming together, and you're like, I'm starting this thing, here I go. A lot of it's because you're feeling like you need to do something to take your power back because it's in a square to Pluto. But when you're watching this at the end of the week, as you're getting into the 10th, the moon will then oppose, and then you're going to go, okay, what action have I taken to appropriately prepare to deal with some power issues out in the world, and how does it make me feel? Watch for the karmic stuff taking place, this Sunday and next Sunday. You're going to see it kind of across the board. I don't think that is going to slow down. And then we're going to see, obviously, a little bit later in the morning on the 10th, the moon will ingress into Leo. So we're going to spend the second half of Sunday the 10th with the moon in Leo, and that moon is just going to be inching towards Venus. So we're going to see some Venus conjunctions next week, which I think is going to be nice now that we have Venus direct. Venus is actually going to spend, I think, about a week at 12 degrees. So those of you guys who are Taurus and Libra risings, you can rejoice because your planetary ruler has gone direct. But it's really significant to see Venus sit at that degree for so long. So you might want to take a look at where 12 degrees of Leo is in your Placidus chart, so you have a better understanding of what's actually waking up or what's actually now blossoming and coming into fruition, so you can see the full effects of the Venus retrograde. All right, so this was this up and coming week. Okay, so I just want to give you guys like the marker so you know where we're at. And then I'll take you now briefly through the rest of the month. And I want to take you guys actually to the 11th. No, the 15th. I take that back. September 15th. Okay. So a couple of things happening on this date. For starters, we are going to have a new moon that will be in Virgo. I already put a video out for you guys if you want to take a look at that. But we've got this new moon in Virgo, so brand new fresh start. It's going to be at 21 degrees ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is still retrograde. So this is a lot of setting intentions about change, trine to Uranus. And it's requiring us to reevaluate, rethink, rework, and really tap into our intuition. Very powerful because Mercury is getting ready to station. So actually you'll see on the following day, Mercury is going to station direct, and that will be the end of the Mercury retrograde. So we're going to start to see Mercury and Venus kind of come out of their fog. But this will be when Mercury goes direct. So let me show this to you. It'll be right around here. And there we go. That's going to be in the PM on the 15th. So it looks like, yeah, just after the new moon, actually. Okay, so Mercury goes direct. So September 15th, Mercury retrograde ends. So that's good news for my Gemini and my Virgo risings. And then on the 17th of the month, we are going to see Venus in Leo square Jupiter in Taurus, okay? Now, this is a storyline that goes back to really the mid-June period. So throughout the Venus retrograde, we've seen Venus square off with Jupiter 3 separate times. The first time happened around June the 11th, and the second time was around August 22nd. So this will be the third one on September 17th. Now, Jupiter is about making things bigger, right? More abundant, more resources, over the top. Venus is about love, money, resources, pleasure, relationships. In the sign of Leo, it can be about having fun. It can also be about overdoing it. So whether that's like too much sweet stuff, it's too much spending. I keep laughing. It's like spending money like it's going out of style. There's been a lot of money that has been leaving banks, a lot of money that's been going on and off of exchanges, a lot of people that have been either jumping in and wanting to invest, or they've been kind of taking cash off the table. Squares always represent some kind of pressure. So I'm curious to see what happens around the 17th. As this is the final Venus-Jupiter square, which might send some things skyrocketing in terms of price or values. But Jupiter in Taurus is about our beliefs about our values. What do we deem valuable? You know, something that's come up a lot for me throughout this Venus retrograde is I've been really thinking a lot about money and resources and values, and watched a number of things that's like, you know, why has money, you know, had the issues that it's had over the last few decades in terms of its value, and like how we got away from the gold standard and how that's impacted money, and, you know, why, you know, fiat can potentially be like this, like emperor has no clothes situation. And so, yeah, it's definitely materialized for me as learning a lot, right, Jupiter, about resources and how to better invest and what to be investing in. And also, am I investing my time doing the things that I want to do? So for some of you guys, there's been some moral issues or dilemmas in love. Sure. There's also perhaps been some, you know, excess spending, partying over the summer. But this can be like the tail end of realizing like, wow, like traveling's actually been very expensive, or there's been a like higher cost for flights and for accommodations, or yeah, just I guess effects of inflation, people really realizing how it's impacting them and their ability to possess things or even to have savings. But nevertheless, this square is the final one. So watch out for overdoing it. But this might be a part of a storyline that's been kind of going back to around the 11th of June. And then on the 19th, we are going to see the sun come into an opposition with Neptune. Oppositions are relational. This is 180 degrees. I'm calling this, am I missing something? Okay. Because we're seeing the sun come off of the trine to Uranus with that new moon. So we're setting intentions to do things differently, innovate things differently. And then when the sun comes into opposition with Neptune, it's going to be like, wait, where did that thing go? Or, you know, these are the actions that I'm taking, but like, what is the purpose? At what sacrifice? This is also at 26 degrees. This is a Taurus degree. I have a hunch that what we're going to see, especially over the next couple of weeks, with the Sun-Neptune opposition, I also think with this Mercury retrograde trine Uranus, there's going to be probably some stores that are not wanting to take cash, I would assume, or it's going to be harder when it comes to cash transactions. There's going to be more of a even push than normal. Some stuff that I saw like recent months, like reverse ATMs, like you go to like concerts or like sports venues and like you want to buy something with cash, but you can't. So there's an ATM that you put your cash into and it gives you a card that's on plastic, and or I guess it could put it back into an account, but I'm pretty sure they're giving cards, and then you can go and spend the cash on the card. Like what? I don't know, crazy to me, but 26 degrees is a Taurus degree. So I think when we see the Sun opposed Neptune, it's the, wait a second, where is the money going? Or maybe we hear about some money going missing, or we hear about some kind of big budget or big spending revolving around healthcare and also resources that go to private spaces. So whether this is like some huge push to send a large amount of money to a foreign land for support, especially people who are in need or who are in need of housing or resources, right? Pisces can be about homelessness. Or we hear about a large sum of money that's being, put into a hospital system or a healthcare system, or I don't know, something about this makes me wonder. Be careful with spotting scams. Be careful with buying everything you hear. This is a day that I would be very cautious when it comes to money, because money can go missing. I also say this because we are starting to see the moon in Scorpio come into opposition with Uranus. So likely there's going to be some shocks and surprises about resources. And while 8th house is money owed, Scorpio, 2nd house Taurus is what we possess. So to me, it looks like people might be freaking out about what they're potentially losing, right? So that might be a theme that's coming up on the 19th. And then on the 21st, Sun trine Pluto in Capricorn, a very powerful day on tap, especially for just like getting down to business, getting things wrapped up, completed, getting some kind of work done. This is also going to be, I think, about relaying information. I take that back. 27, yeah, actually right here. So it's going to be right on the turn of the evening of the 20th, but you're going to feel it going into the 21st. So Sun trine Pluto right here. Okay. So I like this. I mean, this is productive with the Sun in a Gemini degree about communicating, executing, traveling, signing documents, relaying information. And then the trine to Pluto is about just having a lot of willpower to get something done or to complete a task. Okay, so the 20th, the 21st is great for getting that stuff done. And then on the 25th, we are going to be seeing the third and final Mercury trine Jupiter. Okay, looks like it'll actually be a little bit earlier in the day here. There we go. So what you're going to notice about this is the third time that Mercury has been in communication with Jupiter. You want to look back at July 1st and August the 9th. And likely there was a lot of talking about what you could do, what you were optimistic about, what you believe in, what you were reorganizing, reevaluating when it comes to your productivity, your health, your resources. And this is kind of the finale. So obviously when Mercury and Jupiter trine, we get good news. So you're seeing one of those transits actually happening this week if you're watching this at the beginning of August. So something that you're still kind of working out or getting ready to kind of tell the world, likely it's becoming a little bit more visible, or there is going to be more clarity now that Mercury is direct in regards to these topics. What's interesting is that, when the first, at least the first Mercury-Jupiter trine happened, both of these planets were direct, okay? So they were moving forward. But now we've got Jupiter retrograde and Mercury is direct. So that makes me wonder, has there been some slowing down or kind of constricting that's happening with Jupiter in Taurus? And is that actually affecting how people are assessing or reevaluating jobs, resources, health, and wellness? Perhaps. But finalizing good news is what I would expect on the 25th. And then on the 29th, oh, also one other thing about the 25th. Venus is at 20 degrees. So this is where we had the Venus star point. So if you guys remember, maybe you guys saw my recent video with Donnie. This is where the Sun-Venus cazimi took place. So this is the new Venus star point. So when planets conjunct this degree or return to this degree, things happen. So this is also a big turning point for the Venus retrograde. Venus won't be out of shadow until she hits about 28, 29 degrees. And as of the 25th, she's back in that degree. She's coming back into a square with Uranus. So likely what you're also going to feel around the 25th is you're going to start to feel the rumbles of the Venus square Uranus again, which is important because we've got the South Node in Libra ruled by Venus. So you're going to see Venus square Uranus, which is going to shake up relationships big time. So if you've been wrestling, going back and forth with something all summer, you'll start to see like the full effect of that around the end of September. And we're going to see Mars approaching the South Node. Oof. There is still, in my mind, the Venus retrograde kicks hard on the back end. We see a lot of challenge between the South Node ruler, and we also see a challenge with the North Node ruler. So there is still something that's kind of breaking, severing, kind of like cutting down a little bit. Then we are going to see, let's see. Okay, so I think I told you guys, look at July 1st and August 9th. These were the last 2 times that we saw Venus in a square to Uranus. So that square won't actually take place until the 29th. Exactly, it'll be closer to the 29th. Because Venus is still slow. Okay, so this will be on the 29th. Venus square Uranus, 22 degrees. And that's a Capricorn degree, by the way. So this is going to be something about budgeting and spending, you know, what leaders are spending. I'm curious to see, you know, what new packages, you know, politicians are trying to push through, or the president's trying to push through, especially for incentives for younger people, children. And, you know, if we're going to be hearing more about the potential push for, you know, some health support, I'll just leave it at that, and whether or not people accept it. But with Venus square Uranus, we see upsets in love, finances, and relationships. We're breaking free. So like I said, there's been a storyline about something wanting to break free really since the beginning of July. And so this is going to be the 3rd and final square. And then on the 30th, oh, this will also be a full moon in Aries, I should say. So we're going to have a full moon in Aries on this day with Mars conjunct the South Node. And this is a full moon, which if you guys think back to the 3rd week of April of 2023, we had a solar eclipse in Aries. Well, this is that completion, okay, of that. And obviously having Mars in its fall in the opposite sign, conjunct the South Node makes things a little tricky. Obviously, the cosmos are trying to get us to kind of cut ties with the past and let go of some kind of past karma situation. This is a full moon that's going to kick also for about a day or two later, because that moon's going to continue to move through Aries, conjunct Chiron, conjunct the North Node, where we have to heal our own wounds and make an opposition to Mars on the South Node. So the 29th and the 30th are lit. That is going to still, we're still going to be feeling the spiciness of that full moon. And then on the 30th, we're going to see Mercury in Virgo trine Uranus and Taurus. And if you guys saw my Mercury retrograde video, you saw me talk about how Mercury turned retrograde at 21 degrees, where we're having that new moon in Virgo. And then it was short of coming into a trine with Uranus. So it's almost like September all month long, and even the end of August, but for the most part, September all month long, that retrograde is like trying to get the word out, trying to tell people Mercury trine Jupiter. You know, I wonder if it's like people starting to put 2 and 2 together and realize it's not just a local returning to old ways in terms of routine and health and wellness, You know, could it be because the sixth house can deal with gyms, right? It can deal with laundromats and, you know, centers where we deal with health and wellness. Are you going and seeing your doctor and seeing that they're returning to wearing masks? Are you going and seeing that people at your local, you know, grocery store are taking, you know, necessary measures for health reasons? This could quite literally be Mercury retrograde in Virgo. But the trines to Jupiter and also Uranus is people putting two and two together, realizing it's not just happening in my city, it's happening in this other city across the country. It's not just happening in my state, it's happening in this country across the world. And where people are tuning in, Mercury retrograde, to the fact that there is a pattern, right? This is with Pallas, that there is something that's changing globally. Global patterns changing with health, with food, with resources, right? With weather. Weather is a huge theme. Physical pattern changes. And so, you know, some of you guys are probably like, okay, we get it. But I think that's really what this is about. And I think it's quite fascinating that there has been reports about, you know, whistleblowers and people coming forward saying that we are returning to those things. There's kind of like a soft launch of them talking about it coming out of the White House. And I think that we're going to see come the end of September that it wasn't just kind of like, oh, let's just see how it goes. There's going to be like a push. And so I'm hoping that, you know, the Mercury trine Jupiter is about enough people talking about what is healthy, right? What is freedom? What does it mean to be able to speak out against something? What does it mean to be able to transact with physical cash and dollars and coins if necessary? What does it mean to have the right to be able to kind of move freely and share? You know, Mercury, after all, is about breathing, right? It's connected to Gemini. And that's pretty much like the week or the week/month at a kind of a overview. One other thing I did not touch on, and that's because I'm actually putting together a separate video for you guys, but we are going to have the fall equinox. We are going to see the sun come into Libra, and that'll be on the 23rd. At least here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's going to be the first day of fall. Everybody else in the Southern Hemisphere, you guys are going to be experiencing spring. And so I'm putting together a video for that because I do like to look at when these ingresses happen and talk about what it means for the better part of the next 3 months. I think it's a very interesting equinox chart, especially with the sun being in Libra, which it always is, but the moon being in Capricorn, and there's some very distinct connections with some asteroid goddesses that I'm going to be talking to you guys about. So I'm going to be putting a video out about that as we get closer to the equinox. But we know that when we have these transits, really big, significant energies start turning over. This is when we start focusing on balance, on ritual, on preparedness for this next incoming season. And guys, I have to tell you, okay, October, we're going to have 2 eclipses. Mid-October, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Libra. At the end of October, we're going to have a lunar eclipse in Taurus, both ruled by Venus, which is going to be going through Virgo. So I think we kind of have our work cut out for us. I love this month. I feel like there is so much richness and reward for preparation, for tapping in and being aware, for getting organized, for taking care of our health and taking stock in how much we've gotten done and how much more we have to get done. So use this month to get, you know, all that stuff kind of checked off your to-do list. Let me know, you know, if this resonates with you, what's kind of going on in your astrology. Are you having a birthday on either the new or the full moon? I would love to hear that. You guys can catch me here every Tuesday and Thursday. I do videos throughout the week. Astro Musings, where we break down some of the transits in more depth. We also have, obviously, Astro Weather on Sundays, new and full moon reports. And if you guys want to see some information about the eclipses before they happen, I do my webinar, like I said, in about 2 weeks. So you guys can get my 2 cents on that before I put the videos out, which are going to be probably closer to October. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you guys like my style of readings, you want to book a reading with me, check out my website below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. You can hop on my calendar, see what sessions I have. I offer natal chart readings, transit readings, election dates, synastry, composite, and much more. I also have emailed reports if that's something that interests you. You guys can see my schedule live and book with me for a live Zoom call where we can take a look at what's going on in your personal horoscope. And yeah, join me here for live astrology this Friday. So I'll be here Friday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I will post the link in my community tabs on Thursday. So if you'd like to get a donation-based astrology reading on Friday night, come and hang out and join us. I would love to see you there. And I hope it's a good month for you guys. I hope the next week is good. I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about Wednesday, because I have a feeling Wednesday is going to be a bit of a topsy-turvy day. And yeah, just keep on keeping on. Like I said, this month is going to be the calm before the storm. So enjoy it. And I hope that it is a good one for you. I will see you guys back here on Tuesday. Until next time, take care.